It was eye-opening to read this article on marriage in the health section of Canada's Maclean's magazine. Well, in a vast array of scientific studies, over and over again, a happy union has been shown to benefit virtually every system of the body. These findings have been repeated around the globe. Quite simply, if we could package it in a pill, marriage would qualify as a wonder drug. Unfortunately, an increasing number are saying no to God's gift. Marriage rates are now at their lowest in a century, and their survival rate is tragic. That's why my guest is making his appeal, and you're sure to find his counsel refreshingly different. Dr. Tim Kimmel, the founder and president of Family Matters, advocates a grace-filled marriage. Tim, this is the missing piece, the place to start, you say in your subtitle.
Absolutely. What most people would think is you want to have a love-filled marriage, right?
Yeah, love.
Yeah, and I've been to my share of weddings. I'm sure you have, and I've even performed some. And everyone, I was just amazed how much love was up at the front of that church. But then you run into the same couple 5, 10 years later, 15 years later, and that love has gotten worked over, and it's weathered and weary and boring and bored. And then they think, well, we got to rekindle our love. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, you had tons of love. What makes you think that if you go out and maybe have a romantic getaway and maybe go to a conference or something, that this is all going to, no. See, love is it's not enough because it's still ran by us. We need something bigger. The missing ingredient in marriage isn't love, it's grace. It's grace.
Now, how do you define that?
Well, grace is giving people something they desperately need but don't necessarily deserve. And if anything tests that, it's the close, intimate relationship of a husband and wife, because it's the best of times, worst of times type of relationship. We see each other putting on at our high and our lowest, and we need grace. But grace only comes from one place. It comes from the cross. It comes from the God of grace.
Talk about higher power here.
Yeah, big time.
You know, you make quite a confession. I just want people to know that you weren't born an expert on this.
No.
In your book, you say, grace is desiring the best for your spouse, even when we don't deserve it. Mm-hmm. I know because I married an angel. She married an idiot.
Absolutely.
How long would you define yourself as?
Well, I still am. I mean, I still struggle with that. I walk around feet of clay. I never learned how to cook, and so she left me in charge of the kids to feed them when she was on a trip, and she left all these frozen meals for me to just microwave, and I opened up the wrong lasagna, and I couldn't get it in the microwave, and I thought, I got something in the garage that can solve this.
Oh no!
And so I went out and I got my skill saw and I cut the thing off. And cut the thing in half, and as I was doing this, a guy was coming door to door at in our neighborhood selling subscriptions to magazines. And he showed up and he started to do his thing, and he said, "Did I just see you saw a lasagna in half?" Yeah, I'm fixing dinner. Well, I mean, those kind of things.
God bless Darcy, who helped write the book, by the way. You've been married 43 years.
43 years, yeah. But you know, I like to go down dead-end roads that are clearly marked just to make sure they go nowhere. And like a lot of people out there, my dreams for our life are sometimes eclipsed by my ability to make them happen. We all struggle.
You're human.
Yeah, we're human. We're human. And that's why we need something bigger than our own human love.
You see,
and that's where God comes to rescue in His grace.
The core issue is treating one another the way God treats us. And you advocate a lens change.
Yeah, because that's grace-filled marriage is summarized in that one sentence. It's treating your spouse the way God treats His spouse. And in the book, I look at some different lenses that we tend to look at our spouse through, and not necessarily because we're bad or evil, or we're just people. And can I show them to you?
Please. I love show and tell.
The first one is what I call the me lens. And this one is interesting because like Moira, can you see me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see me just fine. But you know what I'm looking at? I'm looking at myself. This is mirrored glass. This is the kind like they have in interrogation rooms and police stations. And this is an attitude where you're looking at your spouse where everything is determined by how it reflects back on you and how it affects you. And you tend to use a lot of personal pronouns that we're supposed to be a collective, like my time, my space, my money, my kids, my goals, my dreams, all that stuff. My need for sex or my lack of need, all that stuff. And so it really has a way of sucking the love out of the person that's on the receiving end of that. But then there's a love if lens. This is tinted glass. You know, it's murky. You can't get a clear sense. And this is that many times it's not uncommon for one spouse to look back at somebody who's looking at them through that lens. It's a reaction sometimes.
Is that I'll love you
I'll love you.
You meet my needs.
If you would just help me around the
happy.
house, if you'd stop treating me like I work for you, if you'd get your goofy parents to back off, or you know, that kind of thing. We put these conditions on it, and this affects every part of the relationship, especially the heart connection and the joy. But then there's this one.
That's a pretty one.
Isn't it pretty? It's so pretty.
Stained glass.
The pious lens. This is also the most sinister of the three.
Oh.
Because this is where we use our moral high ground and sometimes even the Bible to impose on our spouse what we want from them for selfish reasons.
We make it a God thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
The Bible, I wish you'd just be the spiritual leader of this home or whatever, and they get into those, they take those passages that were supposed to set us free and use them as sledgehammers, like submitting and
Men really hate that, by the way.
Men
that pressure
hate
to
it.
be the spiritual head.
The last thing that would motivate a man to be the spiritual leader of the home is a wife saying, I just wish you would step up and be that just once. Boom, forget that. But these are, it's interesting, Moira. I usually don't have a hard time convincing people of their self-focus.
Self-centeredness.
And self-centeredness, or even their self-protection, but I have a hard time sometimes convincing people their self-righteousness. Because this one, we actually feel that God is justifying our attitude towards
Shouldn't God be the center of our lives? And we should reflect that.
Yeah. But here's what's interesting. When Darcy and I got married, we packed all three of these lenses with us. And we could switch them around depending on which one worked.
But you were using them all.
Oh, we were using them all. But Maura, we weren't bad people.
No.
We loved each other. If people saw us in those first 10, 15 years of our life, they'd say, what a nice couple. And we had a decent highlight reel from that time in our life, but there was something missing. It was something missing because these things were still all about me or her. And that doesn't create the heart connection you want. And but then we try and solve the problem, and that's, even there, we can go wrong,
I think we have a really good portrait of how you tried to solve the problem, and a great opportunity for us to actually see Darcy.
Yeah. Let's look at that.
Let's take a look.
But I'm going to change, starting right now by trying harder to do all the right things.
Me too. In fact, you know what? I'm going to start reading my Bible every day.
I think I'll start to journal about being a better spiritual partner for Tim.
And I'm going to join the men's ministry down at the church and get some of those guys to be accountable to us for being such a knucklehead.
I think I'm going to try that compliment your spouse 3 times a day thingy that we learned about at the women's retreat.
I'm going to take those long walks on the beach with her, even though no man in his right mind would ever want to do it. I mean, what's the point? I mean, where's our destination? We should have a mission. I wish we could maybe race somebody or at least time ourselves and see if we beat yesterday's time, but I'll do it because that's what she wants.
Wow, I am really looking forward to that next walk on the beach.
Admirable. Sounds exhausting.
Yeah, but see, as we set that thing up, she was saying how I said, I'm tired of looking at her through that me lens, and she said, I'm a semi-pro at looking at him through that love if lens, and I'm no amateur when it comes to pies. We all can do this, and you don't have to be bad people. You can be Christians and serving and all. And so, but when we were trying to fix it, we were trying to do it in our own power. But the way that story ends is kind of the interesting thing, is that how do we get beyond this? We can't solve this in our own power. And what I do is I say, I ask the question, what were those balloons filled with? They were filled with air, but they were filled with our air. We had both blown those up individually and tied them off. And so we were still trying to solve it in our power.
Your own strength.
And then what I do is I go and get a helium tank that's painted black with a cross on it. I said, what if? And then we fill our lives with Jesus and his power and his presence. We let his grace become the default mode of our life. And this is only going to happen, Maura, through relationship with him individually. And then we put those on clips, and they just float there just fine, because we can't solve these in our power, and that's why we need the grace lens.
There you go.
That clear, understanding of seeing each other the way God sees us and treating each other the way He treats us.
Wonderful illustration.
Yeah.
Interesting point, one of many in the book. Grace and nice are not synonyms.
No, they're not. Now grace can be nice at times, but nice is a man-made, a human thing that we can do. And many times we're nice for our own best interests. We benefit from it. But see, grace is different. Grace, like I say, it's counterintuitive to us because many times there's nothing in it for us. It's all about that other person. But I say, well, where do we get this from? What was in it for God when He sent His Son to the cross? To climb up on that cross. In fact, one of the stories I tell in a book, we talk about engagements. Yeah, I'm sure you got engaged, and when I got engaged, I've seen these jumbotron type things, big public things, or the quiet ones over in the corner.
Tell the world.
Yeah, but there's one place I think would be a lousy place to ask somebody to marry you, and that's at a public execution.
Oh.
But that's exactly where God went, isn't it? That's
right.
where He went to ask for our hand in marriage. But there was a dowry price that had to be paid first. And that our sin had to be dealt with. Our mess had to be handled.
So that we could be the bride.
So that we could be the bride.
Christ.
And so that we could have that heart connection with Him. And He went and He didn't get down on one knee. He climbed up on a cross. They didn't have beautiful gold. They had awful spikes.
Spikes.
And He didn't have a party waiting for Him. He had people jeering Him and friends abandoning Him. But He loved us that much. And when we connect with Him that way, when we connect with Him individually, then the default mode of our heart just changes outwardly oriented. And it helps us when we face some of those things that are just over our heads.
Well, clearly, you want to take this grace-based adventure in marriage. And you've provided all we need, Dr. Kimmel. Look. We have a study guide. This is a whole video study.
Yeah, there's a video study there that if you're out there and you're get together with friends, maybe a small group or something. You want to, Darcy and I. The only problem is you got to invite us to it. But they're short.
I love it.
They're 20, 22 minutes long. But Darcy does the intros and exits, and then I do his teaching. But then they interact with it. And then of course the book Grace-Filled Marriage. When you walk through that, frankly, I'm going to tell you, it's going to mess with your heads.
Well, Josh McDowell, your good friend, has been with us recently. He says this book isn't a facelift for your marriage. It's a heart transplant. So let me encourage you. It's at our e-store. It might be a game changer right on time for you or someone you know. And remember, we would love to pray for you, whatever your challenges or concerns. It could be your marriage today. You can call our prayer line anytime. Watch for Dr. Kimmel. He's going to be making surprise appearances
Great.
on this program, and we're so thankful that you will.
Thank you, Maura.